You're locked in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio. It's the show that helps you build the business you need so you can live the life you want. I am your host, Ralph Brogden. You know, I'm looking at some pretty disturbing statistics. In the United States, there were more than 70,000 drug overdose deaths in 2017. And you know, that number is more than the number of people killed in auto accidents and the number of people killed in firearms-related accidents. And so this is a critical problem. And why are we talking about it in the context of entrepreneurship? That is going to be what makes our next guest so interesting, because he has found a way to connect these two ideas together and create a paradigm shift for addressing addiction, recovery, and treatment. I am privileged to have Jesse Harless with me on the show today. He is an author, a trainer, a life coach, a group empowerment facilitator, and a motivational speaker. Jesse recently released his first Amazon best-selling book called Smash Your Comfort Zone with Cold Showers. I love that title. Jesse is the founder of Entrepreneurs in Recovery Facilitation Training. It's a training that empowers people in addiction recovery to reach their full potential. Jesse Harless, welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio.
Hey, Ralph. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on today.
You have made an interesting connection between the concept of recovery from substance abuse and some of the traits of entrepreneurs. And I think our audience would be really interested in listening to those distinctions and that connection. Tell us a little bit about Entrepreneur in Recovery. What's that all about?
Sure. So Entrepreneurs in Recovery started as a result of, I was working for a large telecommunication company for about 13 years, and I started to expose myself to the world of entrepreneurs and personal growth and development. And it started to really become attractive to me. And one of the reasons is there was a new sense of freedom that I felt that these entrepreneurs had that I hadn't had. You know, I had the freedom from the bondage of addiction. And so when I saw this other type of freedom, which to me is entrepreneurship, I said, well, I'm really attracted to that. I want to learn more. So as I started to learn from entrepreneurs who are actually in recovery from addiction, this name kind of came to me as it was more like out of like an intuitive knowing came this name, Entrepreneurs in Recovery. And that became my business name, because I figured if I'm studying people who are entrepreneurs, who are in recovery, I might as well teach others these principles and things that I'm learning. And that really was the start of Entrepreneurs in Recovery.
I really love that. Now, you are yourself in a long-term recovery. Tell us a little bit about your background and your story.
Yeah, so I am someone, I've been in long-term recovery from, drugs and alcohol for the last 13 years. I found recovery at 22 years old, really after about 4 years of a serious opioid addiction and alcohol addiction, from about 18 to 22, took me down a bad path. I ended up flunking out of college. I got arrested. Many things took place, but it really got me into a place of there was kind of, you don't have to hit bottom to start to change, especially if you're struggling with addiction. You don't have to hit bottom, but I definitely hit a pretty hard bottom at 22 years old. I was running from my problem. I had tried to do a geographical cure down to Florida, which was probably the worst thing I can do in 2005. And I just was more into my addiction than ever. When I came back from Florida from a near-death experience of an overdose, I essentially, I was arrested a few weeks later, and everything changed. I was facing federal felonies. And so those charges, it's like I woke up. It's like I woke up to the life I was living, and life was presented right in front of me, and I had to make a choice, and I made a choice to go all in on my recovery. And everyone's recovery is different. People define it different ways, but my recovery was I was just going to look at my life and say, you know what is the next right thing I can do today, whatever that is, that can move me forward. And I just did that every single day. And obviously that led to new habits, and those new habits led to the life I have today. And a lot of those habits I still do today.
You are an author. In fact, you're a best-selling author. And the title of your book is Smash Your Comfort Zone with Cold Showers. I really love that title. It's intriguing. And the name of your business is intriguing. So you've got some great ideas, and I love how you are putting them together and presenting them to the marketplace. Tell us a little bit about your book, Smash Your Comfort Zone with Cold Showers. What's that all about?
Yeah, so the cold shower idea, so the book Smash Your Comfort Zone with Cold Showers, the reason why I call it Smash Your Comfort Zone is obviously cold showers are going to smash the comfort zone. But more than that, the why I started taking cold showers is a friend of mine. So I had struggled with anxiety, and I'm not talking normal anxiety. I'm talking pretty severe, panic attacks and generalized anxiety type of if you were going to say it was a disorder, that it was to that level. And what happened was a friend of mine said to me, why don't you start taking cold showers? And it was like so out of the blue. And I said, no, I'm definitely not going to do that. It's New Hampshire and 38 degrees out. I'm not going to do that. But I was inspired to do it after my roommate ran upstairs and took a straight cold shower. And I said, you know what, I'll do it. And I took that cold shower. And so what happened was the cold shower was uncomfortable. But when I came out of the shower and I went into a meeting that I'd always had social anxiety in, and I'm talking like this real physical, mental, emotional anxiety. I'm not just talking about in my mind. I mean, it's physical. And I got into that meeting and I didn't have the anxiety. And I said, no, there's just no way. So what I started to do is I did a 30-day challenge of cold showers. And slowly but surely, my anxiety lessened and I became more confident. And eventually I wrote a book about it, because enough people, when you tell them that story, they're like, I've never heard that before. So I didn't even, so I wrote the book because of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard of people suggesting cold showers for other reasons besides the reason that you bring out. But that's very interesting. And I love how you have taken your journey, and you're very open and honest about sharing that journey with others so that you can help them. Tell us a little bit more about what you do. What's the distinction here with entrepreneurs in recovery and facilitation? What do you do for people, and who do you help?
Yeah. So what I do today is I actually started the business Entrepreneurs Recovery Facilitation Training. And what I do is, I was taking these workshops. So to kind of back up a little bit, when I first left my job to become an entrepreneur, I got into a training, and this training is by the Flourishing Leadership Institute. And this training taught me how to become a leader facilitator. But the thing is I wasn't interested in bringing this into businesses. I was interested in bringing this to addiction recovery. And so I started to do that. I brought it to a structured sober living home. And I ran this workshop, and it was a workshop of building resilience in recovery. It's what I called it. And I would take these men through this transformational process using questions, using goal setting, using tapping into their strengths and just getting them to move. There's lots of movement. It was creating wholeness, creating psychological safety so they could feel like they could take risks and share things they might have never shared. And after doing that over and over and over and over again, it started to work. I started to get paid for it from different treatment centers. But what happened was people wanted to learn from me. Entrepreneurs wanted to learn from me. Healthcare professionals wanted to learn. How do I take these workshops into my community? So that's when Entrepreneurs Recovery Facilitation Training was started, so that I could teach people in my workshops that I already have built out. They're all built out, so there's nothing you have to do. I teach you the workshops, and you can bring them in and plug and play them into your community, whether it is addiction recovery or maybe it's a a church you serve or whatever, but you can bring these in and empower people, especially the youth. Like one of the big things with this is bringing this work to the young people who are obviously affected by drugs and alcohol and depression and anxiety. So bringing these groups that really, to be honest, a lot of these groups are designed because I'm listening to the people, but also because these are things that would have helped me tremendous in my first year or two in recovery and beyond.
Yeah. You mentioned young people on your website. You've got some pretty depressing statistics. 93% of 18 to 24-year-olds who need treatment for substance misuse treatment did not get it. And
yeah.
So you're saying that the current treatment model just isn't working and we've got to do something different. What is the biggest problem you see besides the addiction, which, I mean, you tell me, is that a symptom of a deeper problem? And if so, what is the biggest thing that people are really struggling with when they're trying to develop that resilience and get over that addiction?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stigma. The stigma is really thick in mental health and addiction. And I think that a lot of times, you might go into treatment and be in a place where you're already facing enough stigma in your own life and shame. And a lot of times in treatment, you're still faced with that same stigma. You're still faced with this, hey, you're broken, you have a problem, we need to fix it. And that is not the mindset. That is not the approach we need to take, because that approach feeds into the medical model. It feeds into, and I'm not saying that people don't need medicine to get better. Of course not. What I'm saying is that there's another way to look at people through a different lens. A lens of this person has resilience. They have strengths. We need to look at that person and look at them from a transformational lens instead of a problem-solving lens. That we need to solve a problem. Because like you were talking, like this goes much deeper than addiction, of course. And in a lot of ways, we all have addiction. Everyone has an addiction to maybe their belief system, or they have an addiction to an emotion that keeps playing, but we don't think of addiction like that. And I think that, just to open up the question, to open up the conversations around, what are ways that we can approach this that's more proactive, that's more strength-based, so that we can stop looking at the problem and start looking at towards the future of solutions. And that's really how this whole thing got started with the Entrepreneurs Recovery Workshops, is that type of stuff of me doing the work, saying, I don't want to, I have a master's in mental health counseling. So I know what therapy is like. I had clients I served, but I'm looking to take people from where they are now to a greater future that's emerging for them. And I believe that everyone in addiction has that emerging future. They just don't know it. And that's where we need to help to change that conversation.
I really like your problem-solving approach. And one thing you said really jumped out at me. Entrepreneurs, actually, what we do is we see problems and we solve them. That's what we do. we are problem solution oriented people, and looking at this as a problem to be solved as opposed to something is fundamentally wrong with you, or there is something that only medicine can treat. And we certainly want to use everything we can, but dealing with the problem and helping people to find their worth and their value, and not to be stigmatized because of this problem that they have. I think these are really critical ideas that tie into what you're doing. The other thing that occurs to me is that we may not, and based on what you just said, we may not be addicted to a substance. We may not have a drinking problem or a drug problem, but all of us have an addiction perhaps to our mindset, or we have an addiction to workaholism. We have an addiction to lots of things other than drugs and alcohol. So your approach is actually very relevant to anyone who is trying to get out of that rut, out of that destructive cycle that's not going to serve them and is not going to help them tap into their fullest potential. What can someone begin to do right now based on your approach that they can begin to be more self-directed and can recognize this and begin to take some steps in the right direction?
Yeah, I think one of the things that you could start to do is even just something like visualization. A lot of people think visualization is maybe for Olympic athletes, or it's woo woo or whatever it is, but that's not the case. Visualization is a practice you can do every morning for only, you can do it for 3 minutes, but let's say you did it for 3 to 5 minutes in the morning of just simply, before you ran about your day and let the day kind of take over, you can in the morning, maybe just think about like, what's the ideal outcome of today? Like what are the big 3 things that I'd like to accomplish today, and visualize that, see that happening, maybe imagine a white screen and then you visualize what would that look like to have a day of my ideal outcomes coming to pass. And you don't have to do 16 things, you do 3 things. And also then taking that to another level of saying, what do I want to accomplish in the next 90 days or the next year? What's this big thing coming up for me? And you can visualize yourself actually being successful running through that speaking engagement, or setting up that book or business, or seeing yourself publishing that book that you've been holding on to for 10 years. So I would say that's just what came to me when you ask, is visualization is a great way to start. I do that in my workshops. We do a guided visualization into the future, and it's really powerful because then we capture action plans and goals based off that visualization afterwards.
Very important and very helpful for focusing ourselves and beginning to experience emotionally things that haven't happened yet, which alters our state, doesn't it? Alters our psychological approach to something and actually releases the things in our neurochemistry that are going to lead us to a successful outcome, as opposed to self-sabotaging ourselves. The way I approach visualization, I'm glad that you mentioned this, because I believe that we all do this already. We know how to do this. The problem is we do it in a negative fashion. We visualize failure. We visualize ourselves choking at the critical moment. So we've got these vivid pictures in our mind of everything that can go wrong. And usually these become self-fulfilling prophecies. So what you're saying is, let's turn that around and use this power to create the movies and the images and the reality that we want, instead of focusing on what we don't want.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Exactly. We're doing visualization every day, whether we know it or not. We're anticipating the future every day of our lives, whether we know it or not. So we can actually make a decision, a conscious decision, to actually change the images that we see. And and the mind doesn't know the difference. That's what's so interesting about the mind. The mind doesn't know the difference between the visualization and reality. And if you start to visualize enough, the vision does become a reality.
Yeah, very good. And we all know this when we watch a movie, we know it's not real, but that movie can make us laugh. It can make us cry, even though it's not real. We can have a dream, and we can wake up in a cold sweat because of some emotion that was triggered in that dream. And so the mind is very powerful. So this has application to all of us, regardless of where we are. If someone needs this extra help, how does your program work? How does Entrepreneurs in Recovery Facilitation Training work in terms of helping people to maybe get to where they want to be a little bit faster? And maybe it's not maybe they're beyond self-help and they really need to get into a group setting for lots of reasons, but tell us what your process is for taking someone from where they are to full recovery.
Yeah. So, this started out in structured sober living homes and started out at inpatient and outpatient treatment centers. So that's where I was bringing this so that I can empower, because if there's any population that is really needing some direction, that might feel stuck and lack direction, it's someone, what I found from my research is someone who is at a sober living home. They're looking for that next thing. Like, what can I do? How can I get a better job? How can I do meaningful work? So really, those are some of my most favorite places to do this, is like, because that's long term. There's people living at structured sober homes that are a year or two in recovery, but they're there because of that bubble. There's a bubble of recovery. So they're there. So to come in there and teach things like, how do you tap into your unique ability? We all have a unique ability or a superpower. How do you tap into that and then use that to inform your future and the decisions that you make and even the jobs that you're looking for, that you know you're good at that. So let's find ways to set goals around finding work that's meaningful, that's based on your unique superpower. That might be one example. Or, uncovering resources that you don't even know that are available, that are right in, not only inside you, inner resources, but right outside you that you might not even know that they're right there. There might be a Google search away, or they might be in the room with you. Maybe there's someone in the room right now that you can tap into their strengths or their resources that can help you. And I think a lot of times we miss the opportunities right in front of our face. And so that's another thing that we would do in one of these workshops. And there's multiple workshops I've built out. There's about 6 right now. But that's what we do in these workshops. We always look at, like, what's the thing we want to discuss. Like, maybe it's overcoming an adversity, a challenge, or maybe it's being at our best, moments of excellence. And then from there, we tap into, the resources in the room. We imagine the future, and then we set action plans and goals.
I love that. I like how you've got a step-by-step process, and it's customized to fit the resources in the room, the people that are there. Everyone is different, and I love how you are customizing what you do to lead people in what works, but also what works for them, and taking into consideration their own unique value and worth and what they can contribute. So this is very fascinating, and I think that you are probably a very busy person with your training, your coaching. What are you working on right now that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me right now is the Entrepreneur's Recovery Facilitation Training. That's really what I'm most passionate about right now, because I know it can make a difference in the lives of many people. And if I can train leaders, if I can just train more leaders to bring this out to the world, that's the way to, you hear it in the industry, can and clone yourself. Like, get more leaders out there that are teaching work that I know can make a difference. So that's really the big thing, is the recovery facilitation. Other than that, I do life coaching, but I think that the most thing what I'm most passionate about is the training, because the training, believe it or not, is going to also be, I'm actually writing a book, and I've actually based the book based around the workshops that I do in the trainings. So these are not just random workshops. These workshops actually fit an acronym that I have in my book. I didn't know that was going to happen, but you know how we get creative and we're always got a million ideas. Well, this idea stuck. And so this book that I'm writing, it actually fits into the 5 workshops that I have in my training. And they're actually 5, different habits, that can really take someone from survival mode to thriving mode. And so that's kind of what I'm most excited about is this facilitation training and this new book that I'm writing.
Excellent. Well, you've got your work cut out for you, and I wish you all the success. I see how you are taking entrepreneurial concepts, not only in applying them to treatment, but also in looking to scale to, or maybe we could say to franchise your training and make this available to even more people. So this is really fascinating. What a great synergy. And thanks so much for sharing your wisdom with us. Any final thoughts that you'd like to leave with us as we close out?
Yeah, I think, and this is in my cold shower book too. And this quote is, the bottom line is you have the power to choose the rest of your story. I was letting other people choose my story for me for a long time. And when I started to take ownership and realize that I'm the one that needs to take ownership of the rest of my story, that my life's only just beginning, that's when things really started to change. So that would be for any of the listeners, is you have the power to change the rest of your story. No matter where you're at, you can actually go ahead and have a say in the future. So let's end with that.
Excellent. I've been speaking with Jesse Harless. He is an author, trainer, life coach, group empowerment facilitator, motivational speaker, and the founder of Entrepreneurs in recovery facilitation training. You can find out more about Jesse and the different programs that he offers, and especially if you need some help or if you know someone who needs help, check out the website recoveryfacilitation.com. Jesse, it's been a real pleasure to have you on Rebelpreneur Radio today. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Ralph.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at rebelpreneur.com.